in Tongva Gabrielino, in an urban California, it creates a different setting for you growing up. You're from here, you're indigenous to the land, and yet you don't grow up on a reservation.
Being Black in the Native community, I would say a lot of people are scared of me. Being Native in a Black community hasn't been any better because it's more so I'm misunderstood, or people, they approach me with, why aren't you just claiming Black? It's kind of contradicting, and I don't really like being around that type of stuff, so I find myself very isolated.
You know, it's interesting, like, there's no large-scale representation of Native American people, and when there is, it's a, like, one image of what a Native American person looks like.
If you aren't represented in a way that's understood by the majority of the population, I should say outside of the Native population, or if you're African American, outside of the African American community, if you aren't speaking of something that people are familiar with, they don't hear it, they don't see it.
People aren't constantly thinking about the wrong that this country is doing to people. Native American people is an example. African Americans, to be specific, is like a living example of what they're doing to people, but no one's talking about it.
You know what it's called?
What?
Genocide.
Yeah.
I think that representation matters in a couple of different ways. That first of all, it helps you be empathetic with other people. That if you don't know the things that they go through and the ways that they experience the world, that it's difficult to understand how they might be feeling, especially for people of color. It's important for people to see themselves in the media that they're consuming.
We have a history from the very beginning of misrepresentation. We've talked about this issue. Representation means power, so who does the representing? Which is white, heterosexual Christian men. You don't see it, you don't know it, you don't recognize it.
What if I told you the largest rate for substance abuse, crime, poverty, suicide, murder, and high school dropout rate all belongs to the Native American community?
That's a lot.
It doesn't surprise me, and that's what I think makes it even more difficult to belong to this type of community. It's this intergenerational trauma that continues to work against us.
It just makes me think, like, it's just not something that people think about. I even think about, because there's no representation. I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. For the most part, most people in the U.S., there's no vision of Native American people other than like a caricature.
So there were these individuals on campus shouting, that you're going to hell, that you deserve to die.
They said that?
Yeah. So I asked some of my council members to help me, and that we were going to sing songs, and that we were going to burn some sage. The individual who was shouting things, he was a white male, and he was just shouting things at people. And at one point, he tries to come at me, and he says, "Stop listening to this witchcraft, stop singing, you're calling the devil, you're screaming the devil here, you need to stop with that witchcraft." And he tries to physically attack me. And at that point, there were other students who stepped in front of him, and they said, "You're not gonna touch her." He kept on calling me a witch and things like that. And then our campus police came over. They turned it into a conversation of, "Well, what's that you're burning in that shell there?" And they were like, "Well, that's a fire hazard, we need you to put it out."
The whole justice system is absurd. First of all, if it's a federal crime, or a large crime like murder or other big issues, the FBI has to investigate. Indigenous police are not allowed to do that. And then the fact that you're dealing with sovereign land, which means it belongs to people, but if I go into a reservation and commit a crime, I cannot be prosecuted, is an absolute absurdity. And it begs for crime, for people to go in and take advantage of the situation. I know that under the Obama administration they were trying to change that, but I don't think it happened before he left. And my personal opinion is Jeff Sessions is never going to do that.